Welcome back to yet another Ret Paladin video. Verabin here. Today we are going to be looking at Final Verdict. This is the legendary that we've all been waiting for, and I get a lot of questions on the channel about whether or not we should be using it in different scenarios. Is it good for raids? Is it good for Mythic Plus? Is it good for PvP? So we did unlock it, and I crafted it on my Paladin. I crafted the chest, so I want to talk about this a little bit in these different scenarios. So we are going to dive right in. All right, so as far as using Final Verdict in Mythic Plus, I don't think that this is going to be the play. You're going to have access to Tempest of the Lightbringer. That's going to give you more consistent damage on AoE packs. So I can't see Final Verdict ever really being the play. There's definitely going to be like a niche use of it on certain types of boss fights where you would have to be a little bit out of range. There's some fights that are extremely melee unfriendly in both Mythic Plus and raiding. But in Mythic Plus specifically, you're spending so much time on trash that you're going to get so much more value from Tempest of the Lightbringer, so I'm definitely not going to suggest that you play Final Verdict in Mythic Plus. All right, so as far as using Final Verdict in raids, I think that it's unlikely that it's going to sim better than some of the other different other legendaries, but what's kind of cool about it is that if you've already have Hammer of Wrath on cooldown and you pop Final Verdict, it can actually restart the cooldown of it. So I was trying to get an example of that, but the proc rate is so low that it doesn't actually show up all that often, unfortunately. But you can see right there where Hammer of Wrath was on cooldown, then I used Final Verdict, and so it went on cooldown. It came off cooldown. So I think that's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool scenario. So it does add a little bit of single target damage. I was kind of worried about whether or not, in the circumstances where you could already use Hammer of Wrath, is the Final Verdict portion of that, does it just not do anything? So that's not really true. So that's actually kind of cool. So single target, it's going to be okay. In certain boss fights where you'd have to be pretty far away, you could potentially use it. You can see you can hit it from really, really far away. I mean, that feels so far. I mean, you can't Crusader Strike from that distance, but you can definitely Final Verdict from a really far distance. So 10 yards doesn't sound like a lot, but being able to hit from that far away is actually pretty cool. And you can see you can Hammer of Wrath. You can still do Blade of Wrath. You can do that again. It has about the same. I think it has about the same distance as Wake of Ashes. So it's pretty far. I find it to be actually pretty useful. So you can see, then you can pop another Hammer of Wrath. You can do another Final Verdict. You can do a Hammer of Wrath. So it's kind of cool in certain. There's probably certain boss fights where there's a lot of stuff on the ground where you could potentially get some benefit from this. And the other cool thing about it is that it's just more consistent damage rather than it only being viable during wings or anything like that. So I think it's kind of going to be maybe a niche use in raids. All right, so the last scenario we want to look at with Final Verdict is in PvP. And I think this is the one that most people are probably most interested in as far as viability and when this thing is really going to be useful. So I've been testing out Final Verdict ever since I received it. I crafted it the first day it was available and stuff like that because I really wanted to know kind of how this thing works. So my opinion is that it's going to be extremely strong in PvP, especially against certain combinations. So basically what happens is that because Final Verdict is a ranged ability, it's considered a ranged ability, it actually doesn't, it's not stopped by disarm. And this is a really, really, I think this is really going to be really, really useful against monks and against warriors. And warriors and monks are two of the strongest melee classes that we have seen, especially in 3v3 when you can have both of them together. And they are extremely annoying. And even in 2v2, when you're playing against, if you're playing Ret Healer against Warrior Healer, that's going to be a really tough matchup for you to win because Warriors have really, really good sustained damage. They're going to burn your mana faster, etc. And Warriors have really, really good disruption. And Disarm is a big part of that. So they can intervene, they can charge stun and stuff like that, but they can disrupt your burst with Disarm. So Final Verdict hits through disarm, and that means that your biggest burst abilities while you're doing your cooldowns can all be used through disarm. You can use Divine Toll, you can use Wake of Ashes, you can use Final Verdict. So it's going to be a really, really big game changer. And think about the difference between being able to hit a 10k or a 12k Final Verdict in your burst window versus not doing that. You know what I mean? It's going to be a big difference between being able to land a kill and not being able to land a kill. Please be sure to hash that like button and subscribe for more Ret Paladin content. I'll see you guys in the next one.
She wasn't ready. She wasn't ready.
Yeah.